He has published articles in the Harvard Educational Review, Race, Ethnicity, and Education, Education Administration Quarterly, and Equity, Excellence in Education, as well as numerous chapters in books, edited books. In addition to his teaching and research responsibilities, Dr. Aleman served as Assistant Vice President for Student Equity and Diversity from 2012 to 2014, and has worked in the educational policy arena as a member of the Utah Achievement Gaps Coalition and the Utah Governor's Working Group on Student Achievement, seeking policy solutions to the achievement gaps that exist in Utah public and higher education systems. However, his most rewarding work has been the Adelante Partnership, and that's a university school community partnership that he co-founded and co-directs with his colleague, Dr. Dolores Delgado Bernal. So due to its success with engaging parents, community members, and multiple partners, the Adelante Partnership was awarded the Utah Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Education Award in 2007 and the Utah Association of Bilingual Education Community Member of the Year Award in 2006. Dr. Aleman's other professional experiences include being employed with the Central Intelligence Agency in Langley, Virginia, the Bronx Borough President's Office of the Bronx, New York, and most recently the Texas Education Agency in Austin, Texas. Wow. So with that, I would like to invite Dr. Aleman to the stage, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Aleman to Tucson, Arizona.
I can't talk about what I did with the CIA. But I wanted to thank Dolores and all her team. I know whenever you plan an event like this, it takes a lot of work, so I really appreciate the opportunity to come to Tucson and to come share this story. I mean, for me, I've been to 15 different colleges and universities since I finished this about a year and a half ago, so it's been a whirlwind to share this story everywhere from South Dakota to South Carolina to different parts of California. And what I always tell people, the story for me really started in 2002. I was in the middle of my doctoral program in Austin. My mother had been suffering and battling against breast cancer since the late 90s, and had gone through remission, and she came back pretty hard. So she died right in the middle of my doctoral program. I was in the middle of trying to figure out what my dissertation was about when I was called to Corpus Christi, South Texas, to spend the last moments with her. And so at that point, I was really in the stage of, do I continue my doctoral program and just get out, or do I get out and focus on other things? About a month after she died, I was watching a documentary about a civil rights group, and they mentioned the town of Driscoll, which if you go through Driscoll, it's got one stoplight, it's got, the railroad tracks that run right between it. On this side of town is where the Mexicans live, on this side of town is where the white people live, and it still looks like that today. And so I knew immediately that was the town that my mother was from when I heard that in that documentary. I also had a flashback about the time that when I was about 13, she mentioned that she was part of a court case. And that was the only time that she talked about it with me. And so I knew that must have been the court case that we're talking about in the documentary. And so I started doing all this investigation about it. And I found out she was part of this court case when she was about 9 years old. She was part of a federal desegregation court case. And I never knew about that my whole life. And I found out about that about a month after she died. So I decided at that time, sometime in my life, I want to go find that story. I owe it to my mother, I owe it to the kids that went through it, I owe it to my family, I owe it to my kids who will never get to know my mother as a grandmother, that I want to go find that story. And so this is what the documentary is about. I'm writing a book about it right now too, so the book's going to be a little bit different. We can talk about that later. But the documentary is, I met a friend in Salt Lake, he's a filmmaker, he said we should do a documentary about it, so we bought a camera, and we traveled to it back and forth from Texas, and we tried to find as many of the people that were alive, that are still alive, that were part of this case, and that's what the documentary is about. And so, because that's what I study now, And because I work in communities of color and work with kids and work with families who are trying to prepare the kids to go to college, it's also about that. It's also about what does that mean for today? How do we work with families and kids today that want to go to college but don't always have the same opportunities that others do? So hopefully at the end we can have a discussion not only about our own histories and how we find those parts of our histories that have been silenced and have been forgotten for so long, but what does understanding our histories, what does that mean for today? Because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of our work is about. What does that mean for today? Recapturing those long ago forgotten histories, but what does that mean for changing the way our schools work today? Again, I'm very excited to hear your feedback. I'm very excited to be here in Tucson. I know there's been a lot of struggle here about these types of curriculum, ethnic studies, the ethnic studies ban, what that means for kids in the high schools and what that means for understanding our own past. And so that's one of the reasons I did want to come down here, because so much of the work and the struggle is in Tucson and is in Arizona. I'm in the more liberal state of Utah, I guess. I don't know if I get to say that. So this is Stolen Education. This is a story. I think it's relevant to a lot of people here and this community too. And again, thank you, and look forward to the conversation afterwards. Thanks.